Good afternoon, and a big thank you. Thank you from my heart for giving me a space on this very special day to share my insights with you, dear sisters and brothers. I was asked to share my experiences and insights on formation with the clergy, with the seminarians, with the religious, especially towards a synodal church. So I have 3 stories to share, as well as 3 insights on how the synodal church understands formation. I know the graduates, you have finished a significant part of your formation. I believe that formation has succeeded and made you effective disciples and missionaries. I'd like to share where I'm coming from so that when I share about the insights, you would know my experiences, and I'm speaking from that experience. So first, a little graduation story. I graduated from the University of the Philippines. When you graduate with honors, the companies send you invitations, to work for them. So before graduation, my mentor asked me to sit down with him so that we can decide which company would I accept. So I told him I have already decided. And he was surprised. Which company did you choose? I said the parish. He said Paris. Because I trained under the French news agency. I said, no, not Paris. Parish. Parish of St. Joseph in Las Piñas. He said, what's that? He told me, what are you going to do there? In 2 years, you will come back to me and you will beg me for work. You will be totally bored. Anyway, so I chose to work for the parish after graduation. It has been 40 years, and I never had a boring day. So I'd like to tell you, entering pastoral ministry as a life, as a work, as a way of being discipled, you are in for a lot of surprises, a lot of joys, but also a lot of frustrations. But if you are a follower of God, you will realize that these are simply opportunities for you to grow even more as disciples and missionaries. The first insight I wish to share about formation is daily life forms you. Daily life forms you. I took a jeepney once, a very short ride from our place to Alabang, very near. And as soon as I got in, a family also got in. Mother, father, and a small child. And I was surprised because I know the father. I knew him as a boy. He was a beggar, little boy begging, where I take the tricycle every day to go home. And I've known him, I've seen him grow up. But this time, he's a grown-up man with a family. But the family still look like beggars. So I readied my change. I always gave him money. And I was waiting for them to beg, maybe distribute envelopes. If you take the jeepney, you will find, people like this, they distribute envelopes, and you're supposed to put money in. But they did not distribute envelopes. So I said, maybe they will sing. I was waiting for them to sing, so that afterwards, they distribute the cans and you put your coins in. But they did not sing. In short, they did not beg. They paid their fares. Why did I think they will beg? Because he has always been a beggar. And also, they look like beggars. They smell like beggars. That afternoon taught me a very important lesson. That we cannot presume, that we cannot judge. Judging a person from what you know of him from the past or how you see him now. God surprises us. And on that day, God surprised me. When I told that story to a group of clerics, the bishop approached me after the talk and told me he was very disturbed because that very morning, 3 women went in front of his car and stretched their hands like that. And he knew they needed money, so he rolled down his windows and gave money. And then he said, when I shared the story, he felt very guilty because he thinks he missed God's message for that day. And he told me, I will go home today carrying that disturbance, and I'd like to sit with that disturbance so that I learn my lesson. Daily life forms us, and we are asked to be open, because the Spirit of God works in ways that surprise us. And we always say in the Synod, it is the Spirit of God that is the protagonist of the Synod. And the Spirit of God converts us. Without conversion, the synodal renewal we all dream of will not happen. And the Spirit of God is alive every day in the events of our lives, in the events that is happening in the world. And we are called to be open. The second insight I wish to share is that the poor forms us. I went to the market recently. I was buying fish, and there was this lady, old lady, poor lady. He was bringing 2 packs of kamote, cassava, 2 very small packs. And he was selling it, she was selling it for 15 pesos a pack. And usually like this, I just give money and not take the product, so that you can earn even more, right? But she was disturbed. I was giving her 20. She was disturbed. She said, I cannot accept that. You have to accept this, so that I can accept that. I cannot do that, she said. If I do that, my legs will swell and I cannot walk. And for a time, I was silent. I didn't know what she meant. She repeated, if I receive this money without you taking what I'm selling, my legs will swell and I will not be able to walk. I realized later that it is a value, it is a wisdom that she is living by. And I realized that she was teaching me what dignity means. She was telling me her deep values are not for exchange, are not for sale. She worked. I think she planted the cassava herself because it looked like, very small, maybe planted in her garden. She said, perhaps my work has value, my labor has value, and don't cheapen it with your donation. The dignity of the poor. I never heard that. I cannot walk if I accept your donation. Her dignity taught me what the Synod means when it talks about the dignity of the baptized. That each one made by God is very valuable, and has a story to tell and has a life, to live. And we are called to honor it. In the Synod, you see very different people. In one of our sessions, someone came in and saw who he was, his seatmate, and he said, I cannot sit with him, I cannot eat with him, I cannot be photographed with him, because they belong to 2 different opinions. One is pro-LGBTQ+, and the other one is against LGBTQ+. In the whole Synod, and even now, as the Philippines prepare its national report, we also did a lot of discernment on these different and controversial issues about people living in irregular unions, the LGBTQ community, sexual identity, the moral ethics of AI, etc. And somebody said in one of the discernment groups, I hope one day we will not be looked at as problems and issues. I hope one day we will be looked at as human persons, with a story and a voice. I always hear church leaders say, the fate of the poor or of the marginalized, they are very devotional. They need to be catechized in a deeper way. I don't know what they mean by that. Every time I hear that, I always ask, what do they mean by deeper catechesis? More hours of lectures that explains the faith? I also hear this, sometimes referring to the poor. They are sacramentalized but not evangelized. I wonder what they mean by that. So, I believe that the Synod is asking us to recognize the dignity of all, but especially of the poorest. It says in chapter 4 of the synthesis report, if becoming a synodal church means to walk together with the one who is the way, then the synodal church needs to put those experiencing poverty at the center of all aspects of life. At the center of all aspects of life. The experience of encounter, sharing a common life, and serving those living in poverty and on the margins should be an integral part of all formation paths. The third and final insight I wish to share is engagement forms us. So it is related also to the first two. Daily life forms us. The poor and the marginalized form us. Engagement or experience forms us. Chapter 14 of the synthesis report says, formation is a lived service, an engagement together with the others. No? Sometimes we feel formation is something we attend. No? But it is something that we engage in. Our team, Bukal ng Tipan, helps a lot of dioceses in organizing basic ecclesial communities. And one of this is the diocese of the Archdiocese of Haro. And we were helping in the organizing of the BECs in the northern part of the diocese, the coastal area, when the Yolanda, the strongest typhoon to hit the globe, hit in 2013. And then all the coastal areas, especially the outlying islands, were destroyed. A particular BEC in Isla Naburot lost everything. They have no houses, the bancas, the chapels, the barangay hall, all were destroyed. No roof survived. Also, they didn't have food. They didn't have anything to cook, and also nothing to cook it with. I remember arriving there after the first rescue operations, and in the BEC meeting, we asked the question, where do we start? Now, where do you start when you have lost everything? That question formed me and continues to form me. Where do you start when you have lost everything? And their answer was featured in all the magazines and studies that follow the story of this successful community that thrived after Yolanda. They said, we have lost our houses but not our families. We have lost our barangay hall but not our community spirit. We have lost our chapel but not our faith. You know, after the initial organizing of that community, after that storm, one of the first things they did was to do vulnerability mapping. It involved the whole community, young and old, the village leaders, local government unit, the NGOs, and they looked at the map of the island and saw their vulnerability points. In a special way, they analyzed what happened with Yolanda. They realized there have been many small Yolandas before the big Yolanda, and that they were responsible for it. Engaging with them in this whole story of rising up, is a formation I will never forget. And it is something that repeats itself. Myself, as engaged in community organizing, it has formed me for the past 40 years, engagement with communities. When we asked them, where do we spend the first money that is coming in, I thought they would say houses. But they said banca. They would like to fish so that they can eat and they can sell something and they can start building their houses after they started earning. So it takes 20,000 to make a banca. And afterwards, they said they'd like to return 40% of the money donated to them. Again, the dignity of the poor. The dignity of the poor. I saw that community emerge again as triumphant, and it was a beautiful way of being formed. So, one final story. I was engaging with young people. It's a group I did not know. And I was asking them to make their choices. Red for no, green for yes, yellow for not sure. So I was asking them, the newspaper said young people are formed by the social media, not by their families or friends. True, false, or not sure? And they all rose. What rose up? Yes, green. I said, I was told that young people think of virtual reality as real, and they prefer virtual reality than face-to-face. True, false, or unsure? What did they bring up? Green. True. Okay? And then I asked the next question. If you want to break up with your boyfriend or girlfriend, would you like to do it virtually or face-to-face? They said, face-to-face. When you want to make a decision, do you want to do it virtually or face-to-face? They said, face-to-face. Engaging, you know. This one afternoon with young people created an engagement that will make me, you know, that invited me to find out what is happening with them and help me learn with them. Final quote on synodal formation. It said, formation is to be done jointly, joint formation. That means formation not just separately as bishops or clerics, as religious or as lay or as seminarians, but to be formed together. It said, the entire people of God, no, is a subject, is a co-responsible subject of formation, and that you or those in formation ministry should be able to enter or integrate, no, into the wisdom of the whole community. You know, with this synodal process and with this idea of engagement as formation, I realized what sensus fidelium really means, no? The sense of faith of the faithful. When I was first appointed to be part of the synod, to be a voting member, I was honored because people come to me and say, you are the voice of lay people, you are the voice of the women. Slowly I realized I have a very small voice. You know, I represent a very small percentage of lay people. My life has always been comfortable. And the majority of the Filipinos are poor. I can never represent them. I remember a mother who told me her husband left her 4 kids to bring up. She said, kung nanay ka, lalaban ka. Lalaban ka sa buhay. And if you're a mother, you will do everything, you know, to help your children survive and thrive. And she said, every time they have no money, she will ask, saan kamay ng Diyos? Hahagalapin ko ang pera. No, believing that it is the hand of God that provides her money. I also read about your very own Haya Bendania, the daughter of a jeepney driver who became valedictorian, who graduated valedictorian. 2021, I think, not too sure. I realized how many months did they not have money for food, for education, for sickness. How much faith is needed to be able to survive such a life. I realized I will never have that kind of faith. I only have the faith of someone who lives a comfortable life. And if I do not engage with the people of God, with the collective faith wisdom of the people of God, then my own sense of faith will be thin, limited, not substantial. No? Believing that the Spirit of God works, no, and has gifted all of us with a sense of faith of the faithful, I understood what the synodal process wants to engage all in discernment and decision-making, and wants to engage especially the poor and the marginalized to listen to their voices, because discernment and decision-making glorifies the one who gave us, you know, all the charisms and all in the Spirit of God. So for the first time, I understood what does it mean when we say the sensus fidei fidelium has a prophetic authority that when we are together, from the bishop to the last of the faithful, we will know what God wills. And it made me realize how important engagement is, especially in terms of gathering the collective wisdom of the people of God. So dear graduates, this is called the commencement exercise, because after today, we commence this other formation, after your formation. And carry in your hearts that daily life will form you and will surprise you, and that we always be open to the Spirit who walks with us, like in Emmaus, Jesus as the stranger who walks with you. The poor forms us. If we want to know God, if we want to be converted to God's ways, the poor are closest to the heart of God. And knowing them, engaging with them, being formed by them, as the Synodal Church says, is a very special way of growing in the faith. And engagement, experience is really the one that forms us. Together, with faith in the Spirit of God, we will know where God is leading us at this time in our lives. So congratulations again, and thank you very much for this time.